Emil Artin was an Austrian mathematician. Artin was one of the leading mathematicians of the 20th century. He is best known for his work on algebraic number theory, contributing largely to class field theory and a new construction of L functions. He also contributed to the pure theories of rings, groups and fields. Early life and education. Parents. Emil Artin was born in Vienna to parents Emma Maria, née Acuti Laura, a soubrette on the operetta stages of Austria and Germany, and Emil Hadocadus Maria Artin, Austrian, born of mixed Austrian and Armenian descent. Several documents, including Emil's birth certificate, list the father's occupation as opera singer, though others list it as art dealer. It seems at least plausible that he and Emma had met as colleagues in the theatre. They were married in St. Stephen's Parish on July 24, 1895. Early education. Artin entered school in September 1904, presumably in Vienna. By then, his father was already suffering symptoms of advanced syphilis, among them increasing mental instability, and was eventually institutionalized at the recently established insane asylum at Maueröhling, 125 kilometers west of Vienna. It is notable that neither wife nor child contracted this highly infectious disease. Artin's father died there July 20, 1906. Young Artin was 8. On July 15, 1907, Artin's mother remarried. Her second husband was Rudolf Hubner, a prosperous manufacturer in the German-speaking city of Reichenberg, Bohemia. Documentary evidence suggests that Emma had already been resident in Reichenberg the previous year, and in deference to her new husband, she had abandoned her vocal career. Hubner deemed a life in the theatre unseemly for the wife of a man of his position. In September 1907, Artin entered the Volksschule in Strobnitz, a small town in southern Czechoslovakia near the Austrian border. For that year, he lived away from home, boarding on a local farm. The following year, he returned to the home of his mother and stepfather, and entered the Realschule in Reichenberg, where he pursued his secondary education until June 1916. In Reichenberg, Artin formed a lifelong friendship with a young neighbor, Arthur Baer, who became an astronomer, teaching for many years at Cambridge University. Astronomy was an interest the two boys shared already at this time. They each had telescopes. They also rigged a telegraph between their houses, over which once Baer excitedly reported to his friend an astronomical discovery he thought he had made, perhaps a supernova, he thought, and told Artin where in the sky to look. Artin tapped back the terse reply, Andromedabel. Artin's academic performance in the first years at the Realschule was spotty. Up to the end of the 1911-1912 school year, for instance, his grade in mathematics was merely genugend. Of his mathematical inclinations at this early period he later wrote, Mein Eigenvorliebe Mathematik zieht sich erst im 16. Lebensjahr. Während vorher von Hergendiner Anlage dazu überhaupt nicht die Rede sein konnte. His grade in French for 1912 was actually nicht genugend. He did rather better work in physics and chemistry. But from 1910 to 1912, his grade for comportment was nicht genugend. Artin spent the school year 1912-1913 away from home, in France, a period he spoke of later as one of the happiest of his life. He lived that year with the family of Edmund Fritz, in the vicinity of Paris, and attended a school there. When he returned from France to Reichenberg, his academic work markedly improved, and he began consistently receiving grades of gut, or sehr gut, in virtually all subjects, including French and comportment. By the time he completed studies at the Realschule in June 1916, he was awarded the Reifesurnis that affirmed him Reif mit Auszeichnung for graduation to a technical university. University education. Now that it was time to move on to university studies, Artin was no doubt content but to leave Reichenberg. The relations with his stepfather were clouded. According to him, Hübner reproached him, day and night, with being a financial burden. And even when Artin became a university lecturer and then a professor, Hübner deprecated his academic career as self-indulgent and belittled its paltry emolument. In October 1916, Artin matriculated at the University of Vienna, having focused by now on mathematics. He studied there with Philipp Furtwängler, and also took courses in astrophysics and Latin. Studies at Vienna were interrupted when Artin was drafted in June 1918 into the Austrian army. Assigned to the K.U.K. 44th Infantry Regiment, he was stationed northwest of Venice at Primariano, on the Italian front in the foothills of the Dolomites. To his great relief, Artin managed to avoid combat by volunteering for service as a translator, his ignorance of Italian notwithstanding. He did know French, of course, and some Latin, was generally a quick study, and was motivated by a highly rational fear in a theatre of that war that had often proven the meat grinder. In his scramble to learn at least some Italian, Artin had recourse to an encyclopedia, which he once consulted for help in dealing with the cockroaches that infested the Austrian barracks. At some length, the article described a variety of technical methods, concluding finally with, Artin laughingly recalled in later years, la caccia diretta. Indeed, la caccia diretta was the straightforward method he and his fellow infantrymen adopted. Artin survived both war and vermin on the Italian front, and returned late in 1918 to the University of Vienna, where he remained through Easter of the following year. By June 1919, he had moved to Leipzig and matriculated at the university there as a Class II auditor. Late the same year, Artin undertook the formality of standing for a qualifying examination by an academic board of the Oberrealschule in Leipzig, which he passed with the grade of Gut, receiving for the second time the Reifesurnis. How this Leipzig Reifesurnis differed technically from the one he had been granted at Reichenberg is unclear from the document, but it apparently qualified him for regular matriculation as a student at the university, which normally required the Abitur. From 1919 to June 1921, Artin pursued mostly mathematical studies at Leipzig. His principal teacher and dissertation advisor was Gustav Herglotz. Additionally, Artin took courses in chemistry and various fields of physics, including mechanics, atomic theory, quantum theory, Maxwellian theory, radioactivity, and astrophysics. In June 1921 he was awarded the Doctor of Philosophy degree, based on his excellent dissertation, Quadratische Körpereingebiete der höheren Kongruenzen, and the oral examination which, his diploma affirms, he had passed 3 days earlier, with extraordinary success. In the fall of 1921, Artin moved to Göttingen, considered the Mecca of mathematics at the time, where he pursued 1 year of postdoctoral studies in mathematics and mathematical physics with Richard Courant and David Hilbert. While at Göttingen, he worked closely with Emil Artin and Helmut Hesse. Aside from consistently good school grades in singing, the first documentary evidence of Artin's deep and lifelong engagement with music comes from the year in Göttingen, where he was regularly invited to join in the chamber music sessions hosted by Richard Courant. He played all the keyboard instruments, and was an especially accomplished flautist. Although it is not known exactly by what instruction he had achieved proficiency on these instruments, he became especially devoted to the music of J.S. Bach.